All this hearing of the Archaeological Review Committee of 21 November 2024 to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Member Pierce,
Present.
Member Treese,
Present.
Member Juan,
Excuse?
Member Bechtel. Here. Chair X.
Here.
You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. We have an agenda before us, and that's the first item for us to deal with. Staff, any reason to add to or change the agenda?
No, Chair.
Members?
Chair, I make a motion that we approve the agenda for the meeting of November 21st.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of minutes would be the normal next item, but we don't have any minutes. So we will move on to matters from the floor. We have folks in attendance. Do we have anybody attending remotely?
Yes, we do. Nicole Ramirez Thomas is going to speak for matters from the floor.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Hi, Chair and committee. I'm just going to give a couple of updates, and both of them are on 106 projects. One of them is a Verizon project at 1120 Paseo de Peralta, which is the PERA building, and they're intending to replace the equipment that's on top of the building, and then put a new box in within or near and adjacent to the San Miguel Cemetery. So the city has, I guess it was in June, asked to be a consulting party, and we've been talking to them and expressed concern for them putting a box right there and asked that it be placed on the south side of the building. And so we just wanted to update you on that we're in conversation with the Verizon consultant about that. And I don't know if you have any questions or want to see a map or anything like that, but
At some point, when it's convenient, I would love to see a map that shows where the boxes proposed to be, where they're going to be doing what they say they're going to be doing, how they're going to be doing it.
okay. And then it's on state land, so the ordinance doesn't have any teeth, but we can work as through the consulting party process through the 106. Okay. So
put on the person hat and say what I feel like I need to say whenever I have that opportunity.
okay, perfect. And then I'll give you a quick update on the Sheridan Avenue project as well. The transit station that was planned for there is currently on hold. That project is on hold. We're working with SHPO to come to an agreement about how to whether or not testing is needed or if it's just monitoring and those types of things. And then in the meantime, the funding has also lapsed. And so we're not sure right now if it's going to just be a shovel-ready project that's ready to go once the funding has been regained, or if we're just going to put it on hold. But I wanted to give you an update on that one as well.
Thank you, Nicole. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it for now. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Not hearing anyone speak or seeing anyone raising their hand. I think we just got another attendee online. I can't wear my glasses and read at the same time. So
That is
therefore-
Heather Latboy, our director, land use director.
Thank you. You're
Hi, Chair Eck, members of the committee. We will email you the plan set that we received regarding 1120 Paseo de Peralta. We did investigate as to whether the city would have jurisdiction because it is a private provider. Although it's on state land, the work is being conducted by the private entity, Verizon. And we were told by our attorney's office that since it's still on state land, it will have that exemption, unfortunately. So anyway, we just wanted to share that with you all so you can be aware. And in the future, any Section 106 project that we're participating in, we will keep the Archaeological Review Committee apprised. And in the near future, we will also have Robin Cordero come give us an update on George O'Keeffe.
And that will take place this evening. Heather.
The very near future. Sorry about that.
It is on the agenda.
Very immediate future. All right, thank you. There's no
Quick
old business.
question.
Go ahead.
This thing on Paseo de Peralta, is that right at Paseo de Peralta and Rosario, that chopping up of the road there?
No.
Or,
This is at the old PERA building
oh, okay,
near the other cemetery.
okay.
Or in the other cemetery, depending on where they have drawn what they think they want to try to do.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. So there's no old business. We'll move on to new business. First case. 2024-9453. I don't want to butcher the name. An applicant for Chama Consulting requests approval for listing as an archaeologist for all three districts and historian on the Santa Fe list of approved archaeologists and historians. We have an applicant present.
That's
You'll have to be sworn in and you can educate me on how to pronounce.
Hi, do you swear and affirm the testimony you will be giving this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
yes.
Okay, and please state your name and address for the record.
Veronica Bashevsky and 149 Calle Ojo Feliz. Santa Fe.
Thank you, Chair. She has been sworn.
Veronica Bishop.
Got it.
I will endeavor to remember. They have a staff report. Anything change on that staff?
No, Chair.
I would note that there's a difference between the listing on the agenda and a listing in the staff report as to what is being requested in terms of the amount of detail. So having read the new business entry on the agenda, I learned more than I did by reading staff report. Okay. Be nice to have the same thing in both places. We will turn the floor over to you. Anything you need to say beyond what you've already submitted?
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Veronica. I'm applying, as you said, for all of the districts and historian. I figured I'd apply for everything. I have a lot of experience in New Mexico doing archaeology and historic preservation. I first started on the Pecos survey in 1996 with Genevieve Head. And then finished my undergrad degree and came back out here and worked with Sherry Schick, and that's where I met Courtney, actually. So I was hoping she would be here. And have worked all over New Mexico. Went back to school, got my master's at UNM in American Studies and got the graduate certificate in historic preservation and regionalism with Chris Wilson. I have in the past been listed in the suburban and river trails areas, although we can't find a record of it, but that was when I was with Parametrics. And I've done quite a bit of work around the historic district. And I guess I would say, you know, in terms of my work in the historic district, I worked with Weatherby Dorshot Earth Analytic and did a few projects, including there was in the back of the Viagra building, there's an excavation I helped with on that, which was a Spanish colonial well, like a juniper cribbed log well. And at Gonzales Elementary with the ancestral Puebloan site there and the Japanese internment camp. That was very early in my career. And Since then, I guess I would say, I have a deep, knowledge of the history of Santa Fe, even if I haven't done that many projects as a PI in the historic district. I'm familiar with, the different cultural temporal periods, the site types, the artifacts, the features. I've done a lot of work in the Pewaukee Basin with Tewa ancestral sites. Recently been working in the Agua Fria area around, LA 1 and 2, not at those sites, but a water improvement, a wastewater project there. In terms of Spanish colonial sites, I've documented portions of the Camino Real near the spaceport and also in La Bajada. And I was part of a group that documented La Bajada cultural landscape. That's now in the National Archives as a landscape. That was with my time at UNM in the Historic Preservation Department. Railroad era or Santa Fe Trail, I've also have experience documenting features in Santa Fe Trail. Like out in Mills Canyon, for example, which is kind of, they grew fruit and brought it to the trail. So I have, deep understanding of the context of the history of Santa Fe and the railroad era as well. Brenda and I, who's my partner at Chama Consulting, we recently did a historic context for the New Mexico Central Railroad for Santa Fe County. Let's see, what else do I want to say? I've done a lot of historic built environment work. That's what I focused on in the Historic Preservation Department. Chris Wilson's book, Myth of Santa Fe, was one of the reasons I wanted to work with him. So I understand there's, 1,000 layers of history in Santa Fe, and especially more intense in the last 500 years. So, and I think I'd be able to recognize and interpret different site types and periods. I've also recorded a lot of acequias and historic buildings throughout the state. Done a lot of archival research as it relates to developing historic context, culture histories, historic built environment reports. And at UNM, I also did a lot of archival research into early mapping this region. So I think that I have a broad skill set that I could bring. I would really like to be a PI in all the districts and a historian. Brenda, my partner, and I just started a business last year, Chama Consulting, and I recently moved full-time to Santa Fe in September. And so our goal with the company is to really focus on regional projects, community-based projects. We have a project right now at St. John's. We're working with Nambe and San Ildefonso Pueblos, some of their historic preservation work. We're working, as I mentioned, in Agua Fria. So we really want our future to be centered around Santa Fe. And so I think this would be a good step to get these permits and start doing work here. And another thing we really want to do is kind of do a little bit of public archaeology, figure out ways to write up things for the public and kind of share more of what we do with the community.
Committee members. Member Bechtel.
Paul, can you tell me the number of hours they're supposed to have, archaeologists are supposed to have for?
For number of hours, given that she's listed in the state registry as a principal investigator, project director, so she's already shown the state that she's qualified as a principal investigator to work on any projects within the state. In the city, there's not necessarily a how many hours they've worked here, but they need to show the ARC their depth of knowledge in Santa Fe in each district. And so there's not a
But there was
set-
a number of days or something.
We traditionally held it to about 6 months, a minimum from downtown historically. So that is an issue,
6 months.
yeah.
Okay. And
I don't know if that's a rule of thumb or if we ever issued external guidance to that effect. We've held that standard for
6
as long
months.
as I've been on the committee.
Okay.
yeah, but I couldn't find it in writing when I looked for it.
Yeah, me neither.
Right, and then the code citation for the Archaeological Review Committee, it doesn't have that, but the ARC can recommend that for what they feel is right for the historic downtown.
So I think only question.
Okay. Member Pierce.
Well, you anticipated my one question. No objections at all to the suburban rivers and trails and the listing as historian, but by my count from your chart here, you have just a little over a month in the historic downtown, and that was his crew, not his supervisor.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like you meet the threshold that we build other people to for a historic downtown, so I would have issue with that particular district, but otherwise everything looks good.
Member Pierce.
I guess my question would be, and I don't know whether this is, does she qualify then for historian or, and just not for archaeology, or how does that work?
Refresh my memory, there is a separate category for historian, right? Someone who's qualified to do the archival work.
There is,
Yeah.
Is it differentiated by district? Yeah, I think.
Chair Eck and Vice Chair Pierce for the historians. All historians in actual direct charge of archival research and analysis of land titles or historic maps shall meet the following minimum qualifications. Hold a master's degree in history or have equivalent professional experience or demonstrate equivalent training, the sufficiency of which is determined by the ARC, and demonstrate the ability to carry out archival research.
Yeah, so the historic preservation certificate, a degree in American studies, lots of time in the field, I think is an issue there.
Okay.
Personally.
I don't have, I'm leaving the qualifications to them because I'm in construction. So, I appreciated your writing. I thought it was very good.
Oh.
So, from that standpoint, I was, yeah. But, that's all I want.
Thank you for the writing sample. It's very nice, succinct document that demonstrates the ability to communicate very effectively in writing. I see that it was delivered by somebody else at the meeting, so hopefully they read it. I don't think I have anything else to say beyond what's already been said, so. Does someone want to craft a motion as to what they think is appropriate?
Sure, Mr. Chair, I move that in case 9453, we approve the applicant for the suburban and river and trails districts and as a historian, but not for the historic downtown.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, good luck, and when you bring more stuff to this committee for us to review, we'll happily do so and see how much of what you do in other districts can be translated into experience for downtown.
Thank you. And if any of you have projects in downtown you need help with.
Give her a call.
You're looking at a couple archaeologists right there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll consider case number 20249451. Tierra Right-of-Way Services Limited, known as Tierra, thereafter. Agent for the Public Service Company of New Mexico, UNM, thereafter. Request approval of an archaeological monitoring plan to bore approximately 4,390 feet of subsurface electrical line at Airport Road and South Meadows Road and South Meadows Road and Jaguar Drive in the Suburban Archaeological Review District. We have an applicant present, will have to be identified and sworn in.
Please raise your right hand for, and state your name and address for the record.
Antonio DeCunzo, 4725 Galleta Road, Northwest, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Antonio, do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony that you have in reference to this item is the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
I do. Thank you. Chair has been sworn.
Thank you, Antonio. What do we need to know?
Pretty straightforward. PNM is planning on boring or HDDing approximately 4,390 feet of subsurface conduit looping line. There's two it's broken into two separate stretches, one along South Meadows Road, the other along Jaguar Road. In addition to the line, there's going to be 8 toolbox locations and 1 distribution pole. No previously recorded sites intersect the project area. There are several sites within the site file search area. I think most are prehistoric, lithic and ceramic scatters, and a couple of Sakia segments. I think there is, I believe on page, the first page, I misreferenced the quadrangle map. I think I said it's on the Santa Fe, and it's actually Agua Fria. And I also, I don't think the construction plans got included in the appendix, and I will be sure to send a copy of those in. My apologies on that. And then the only other thing I would mention is that based on the historic aerial imagery, the one more southern portion of the looping line is pretty close to the old Santa Fe Airport area. So I guess something to certainly be aware of while we're out there. And obviously before any ground disturbance begins, the area will undergo a pedestrian survey.
How much, if you know, of the area is currently not covered by pavement?
I think one map it's got, yeah. So it looks like most of it is, there's that little portion that looks like it's in some yard on the east side of the Jaguar Drive portion, which is the portion closest to the
At the high school.
yeah, I think that's what that is. And then there's a little stretch on the east side of the road for the South Meadows portion. Right across from the elementary school. So it looks, you know, I guess eyeballing that, I would say what's 60% covered by either pavement or housing or.
So there is a chance that you'll spot something during your survey. I just wanted to be sure I was interpreting these things correctly. I was thinking about half of it might be for visual inspection. So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify that. Anything else?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay. Another truce.
Yeah, I was looking for construction drawings. Unsuccessful. Would be helpful. Cause it looks like there's part, this part here right along Jaguar, it looks like it goes next to the road and not through,
Mhm.
that just, I don't know whether that's just the way it's drawn or what, but this looks like that's in the road and this is off to the side of the road. Is that pretty accurate? or-
Yeah, I mean, these are digitizations from the plans. PNM tends to like to run things, and also, I mean, I don't know exactly how the boring and HDDing works, but so there's some wiggle room, but the plan in general is to run sort of in the shoulder of the road,
Yeah,
obviously, hopefully not hit any other utilities that are existing.
sure.
Um,
And then the only other thing I had, wanted to bring was, the map that shows all the sites in this vicinity.
mhm.
I would like them to be closer to the list of sites in the vicinity too, so that I'm not referring back and forth.
Hmm.
Other than that, I didn't have a problem.
Thank you.
Well, same concern. I mean, we didn't get appendix A, so we have no idea where these 8 pulpits are from place. Which is important, right? I mean, if they're all clustered in one end and everything else is
I mean,
long stretch of nothing, then that would be a concern.
they're usually placed at the locations where the line, has these 90-degree
Right angles,
turns.
yeah.
That, because when they pull in like that, they need, and obviously when they, at these pull box locations, there will be a certain amount of trenching as they tie all the conduit together. So, yeah, I mean,
Well, to be honest, I'm torn between the instinct to let you proceed because you know what you're doing and the contrary instinct to teach PNM a lesson that they need to get us detailed plans because it's a recurring theme. for PNM.
this is entirely my fault. Like I have the plans. I sent them to the tech edit folks. Not that it's their fault. I'm responsible. So it's certainly not PNM's fault. Not my edit team's fault. I thought I gave them the plans to put in there, and when I was looking at this thing today digitally, I said, "Oh, fudge," and they weren't in there, and that's certainly not PNM's issue this time.
Fair enough. It does give me some relief that there's visible ground that you can survey first. That alleviates some of the concern. The other thing I had was, in relation to the airport, one end of the line is very close to the old airport. I didn't see anything in the way of monitoring expectations, but a paragraph talking about, how extensively did the airport recontour the land when it was developed, something like that. Do you expect to hit features from the airport at that end of the trench? So, but otherwise, I think the plan. No other concerns.
All right. I'll be back.
I have no comment.
Yeah, I was wondering about monitoring expectations. And having bumped into areas near airports, there are often very interesting things. Not that we had such an incident, but I vividly recall the Albuquerque Broken Arrow in the middle of a survey that I did. It's where somebody dumped the biggest nuclear weapon that we've ever built out of an airplane by mistake, and it smacked into Mother Earth just south of the Albuquerque airport. Along with jillions of other pieces of aircraft that either came apart when they crashed, which would be interesting historically, or were shot to pieces by the military, which is the more likely situation down there. I don't know whether there were any similar activities here. I'm not sure that this was used as an Army airfield or whatever. I think that was further over. But yeah, explicating all the expectations would be good.
And just in the safety note, I would probably, when pawing through the back dirt of the trench near the airport with gloves, maybe a mask, you know it's in the soil. So.
You. Yeah. Back to number 3.
I do have one other question. This lithic site here is pretty near the end of that, and there's probably a pull box there. That would be helpful for them. for us to have those construction plans, because that seems, I don't know what that dimension is, but it seems pretty close. You know, I
Yeah.
know that the description just said it was a little bit scattered, but
Mhm. I mean, it's one of those ones where it's an arms, generated circle, so.
yeah,
Its geolocation accuracy is
sure.
a little swirly, and it looks like it's connecting into the front of this, whatever box is existing in the front of this building.
So maybe an existing box?
Yeah, I mean, and that's some of, they'll do that a lot, well, especially at the ends, they're connecting into existing infrastructure.
Yeah.
Um,
Lithic scatters that never get investigated often conceal very interesting subsurface deposits. So, yeah, if it turns out that that's within like 100 feet of any of your proposed excavations, all these pull boxes, I would ratchet up my worry meter a little bit.
yeah,
One of the sites there at the west end is more than just a scatter, too. It's like a pit house and some.
yeah, I think one of the bigger ones,
Yeah.
further out that way.
Further away,
Yes, yeah, that's one of the further ones.
And all up and down that arroyo on those terraces, if you will, similar sites. I would think something you might encounter.
Mhm.
So you could find some sort of evidence of additional similar archaeology. So maybe more than just a paragraph of monitoring expectation. Anything on the surface is likely been picked up, erased long ago, but again, it's definitely worth looking.
Yes, certainly, as I mentioned, we'll definitely survey anything where there's visible ground.
Anything else? We could have a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve case 9451, their right-of-way services for P and M, with the requested corrections to the text.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you, Chair Eck and Committee. I have something that I would like to bring up. I did email Paul about this. He asked me to bring it up after my presentation here, so that's okay. Chair Eck? Sure. Okay, and this probably ties into the earlier conversation that was had with Vernica, as far as permitting and the historic downtown region. So currently, TR Right Away is under contract with the company to provide monitoring in the downtown historic district. Since TR Right Away doesn't have any staff that is permitted in the historic downtown district, we are subbing this out to Ron Winters. And I guess we were sort of hoping if some guidance would be provided, and it seems like it was earlier, but I'd like to follow up. If I were to go out there with Ron while he's monitoring, how much co-monitoring would be required before I could potentially get listed. I imagine there's probably a lot of variables, because if I'm out there for 6 months and we don't find anything at all, which would be surprising, that probably, may or may not hack it, or, 1 week and we find a pit house site that may hack it. I don't.
I encourage you to try to do such a thing, because I would say any such experience would be very valuable for future consideration. And I think you're correct. Depending on what you find, that's the experience could be more significant than in other situations.
But negative survey or negative testing still counts. Right? A day is a day, because ultimately what we look at is your chart, experience, and how many days you have in downtown. Doesn't matter whether you found anything or not, really. So at least we don't know that looking at your chart.
And so then that 6 months is still the sort of,
That's the baseline. I mean, I'm sure that if you did find something and got really involved and it was only 5 months,
Hmm.
we probably could
Yeah.
consider that, but.
But no, use the 6 months as your guide.
thank
We
you.
haven't really varied from that, have we? Or not since I've been on the board.
No, no. I don't know if we've had anybody that was really right on the bubble of 6 months or not to make that test.
No, usually well short or way long.
Yeah.
There's no debate. So,
But I do appreciate the catch-22 that you're in when you have a few weeks downtown, but you can't seem to get the job to get you over the hump, right? You end up having to do
Mhm.
some, or
Yeah.
like Veronica, trying to suffer somebody else. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, get some time out there, whether it's staring at empty trains or it's actually digging, it doesn't matter. Days.
in downtown Santa Fe, anytime staring at dirt
This is a good time.
Because
You're gonna learn a lot.
there is such a variety of presentations about what the dirt is, represents, what it means, and whether anybody noticed anything about it, that a fresh set of eyes will always be useful. Because the key to many things in downtown Santa Fe is, where did the dirt come from?
Yeah.
Or how did it get to be the way it is? Even if you didn't see anything in there.
Yeah, we always stress, the familiarity with the assemblage, but really what it boils down to, what makes the historic downtown different is the challenge of urban archaeology, right? Of being able to read particularly that's chewed up from 500 years off in occupation, pipelines and trenches and, yeah.
So then, here's maybe a theoretical question, would, experience in other urban settings be useful?
I think any experience in an urban setting could be argued as relevant, and whether what was found or what the archaeological context you're working in was, we could make a judgment about how applicable it is.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, hypothetically, if somebody came and had, years and years of experience in the historic part of Tucson, for instance. Right, I mean, how would we consider that?
I'm thinking of coastal Texas, coastal Florida.
Right.
And I got a privy from Brooklyn, so it's probably not very applicable.
I have a personal bias in favor of experience in privies. So, highlight those things, and if we put together a package that has time and observational experience, and you can make the argument, give it a shot, make the argument.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Previous depends on the age,
Yeah.
1830s is really good, 1930s.
Not the privies at the coal mines and around Gallup that were very interesting. They do bother me. Yeah. Okay. We are now to administrative matters and communication.
You want the information item now or just
Yes.
be sworn in?
It's not a matter that we're voting. Does he need to be sworn in?
I think in the past, since it was an informational item, it wasn't sworn in.
I don't see a reason.
Okay.
He's providing information. He's not testifying as to.
You're not testifying as to that information. It's correct?
Exactly.
Well,
You know,
that's an interesting
I
perspective.
believe because it's an update on an existing thing, it probably might be a good idea.
I don't like getting sworn in.
I
Would
will
that be
defer to staff.
Would that be okay? Just in case.
Felt and sympathetic, yeah.
Please raise your right hand, state your name and address for the record.
Robin Cordero.
Do you
and-
solemnly, go ahead, I'm sorry. Your address?
2101 Dorothy Street, Northeast Albuquerque.
Thank you. Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you so much.
So I have a progress report for the committee. Roll call.
Thank you, sir.
As it's on paper. So just to update the committee, on what has been happening, we began demolition on September 4th at the site. The demolition of the building continued until October 7th. And, beginning on the 14th, continued until the 7th, and that's when we started removing the asphalt and the concrete slab under the grocery store. Once that was removed on October 14th, we realized that we had some very deep footings that we had to contend with. These were going to be steel reinforced footings that were going to interfere with the construction. So we decided to go ahead and demo those and remove those as well. Since they were 8-foot deep piers, it required some large excavations, large trenching, which we monitored. These trenches were anywhere from 8 to 10 feet deep and roughly 5 feet wide. Some of them were as large as 30 feet across. Most of them were about 10 feet or 10 feet long. But this was great because this occurred around the perimeter of the existing or of the grocery store, which we did not have any trenches from OAS. And since all of these went down to at a minimum 8 feet, we actually got our window. So what we were able to document in these trenches were 6 units, 6 stratigraphic units. The first one was engineering fill that usually extended to a depth of about up almost to 3 feet deep in some areas. We also had a number of basement fills from at least 4 buildings that post-dated 1920. Those are still in the ground. We did not remove those except for where the boreholes were going to occur, in which case we did have to remove the foundations for those buildings, but they have been photographed, they have been documented. And then below the engineering fill, we encountered something unexpected, this unit 2. Unit 2, and there's a photo of this on page 3. Unit 2 is a very massive package of silty clay sediments that is filled with historic trash. Across the property, this deposit extends from anywhere from 160 centimeters to 300 centimeters deep. It appears to be largely one single unit of deposit, which was unexpected. We have historic butchered bone, saw cut bone, which would post date 1850, 1860, all the way down to that 3-meter depth. This deposit occurs primarily on the eastern half of the property. It does occur in a few other areas as you trend to the west, but it gets shallower. And then below that, we have unit 3, which is the brown loam. It appears to be somewhat similar in composition, just lacking the heavy organics and lacking any artifacts. Below that, we have a sterile silty clay, which appears to be mostly ponding sediments, glade sediments. Which below that at unit 5, we have a brown clay sand. And then unit 6 at the base, which starts at about 230 centimeters to 390 centimeters below surface. This would be an old channel. We've identified this channel deposit again, almost exclusively in the eastern half of the unit of the lot. When we proceeded to do the drilling, which started last week, we also identified a much deeper unit below this Santa Fe alluvium, which appears to be ancestral or granite gravels, which is likely much older, Pleistocene or older.
Undisturbed Santa Fe formation.
Undisturbed Santa Fe formation. Exactly. So, based on the stratigraphy that we saw, something unusual is going on in the eastern half of the lot and possibly even the southern half of the lot as well, the southwestern. We suspect that there may be some kind of ancestral channel or older swale running through the south, kind of the entire southeastern half of the lot. That for whatever reason was filled in at some point in the mid 1800s. This would be a fairly deep arroyo or channel. So we're going to have to open up a lot more to see what's going on, but it appears that there's not going to be much archaeology on the eastern half of the unit because of this channel until we get to at least 2.5 meters deep. Until we get at least below that, that historic deposit. So, following that, and prior to the drillers coming in to do their boring, we did do data recovery on the north structure. The boreholes we're going to be extending across the southern half of the that north officers' quarters. So we exposed a 3 meter by 13 meter long area and hand excavated that. We did recover, or we did open up the foundations, which you can see on figure starting on page 5, 6, and 7. Those are sections of the foundation that we exposed. The foundation started about a foot below the modern ground surface, which would be about a foot below the asphalt, and extended to about 2.5 feet. It appears that when the lot was leveled, large sections of the foundation were removed, especially on the western end. But we did identify at least 3 phases of construction. And so you can see on page 7, in the top image, you actually have the southeast corner of the original building. And then on the bottom photo, you have an extension going east on the back of the structure. Very different type of construction for the foundation. One of them was, the original foundation was made with mostly cut limestone and cement mortar. And the later foundation was entirely uncut limestone blocks, but again, with the cement foundation. Interestingly, the exterior of the structure was filled with the same historic Unit 2 deposit, almost indistinguishable with what we were getting from the deeper trenches.
What do you mean the exterior?
The outside of the foundation.
Outside of it.
Yes.
A variable distance outside the foundation.
Yes. But this Unit 2 deposit went right up to the foundations. So.
But it does not appear inside.
Does not appear inside.
That's what you're showing here, that dark spot, that dark.
The dark spot, yes, that's excellent. Yes, on page 5, you can see that Unit 2 on the south side of the wall of the adobe wall. So on the interior of the structure, we did spend a good bit of time on the interior of the structure. What's nice is we ended up finding the midden associated with the original structure. And because the later addition capped that cap that midden, it was beautifully intact. And so we've got a lot of saw cut bone. We've got a lot of fun little artifacts in there. And then there was a thin layer of what I'm calling the subfloor associated with the later construction, where we did find a few other artifacts, like a sewing needle, a bone sewing needle, and quite a few buttons and things that you would expect to fall through a wooden floor. So the interior of the original structure, we did not get anything out of because the OAS trench did a beautiful job of just cutting right through it. And our 3-meter wide unit completely encompassed the trench. So I think you can just make out, well, no, you can't really make it out. But yeah, we don't have anything from the interior of the original structure yet. But that will be coming in the next phase of excavation, which we are starting on December 2nd.
Well, there is some space still within the exterior boundaries of this building that has not been disturbed, and you're hoping you'll find something there.
So south of the structure, the only part that we disturbed and the boreholes disturbed was within this unit that we excavated. The entire rest of the exterior, it's intact.
Exterior of this officer's quarters?
Exterior of this officer's quarters, yes, appears to be still intact. So we're gonna continue excavating.
But I thought I had heard you say that the interior has been largely removed by the OAS.
Only within our exposure.
But there is yet a potential for discoveries of material inside the structure that is outside the OAS.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so December 2nd, our first order of business will be to re-expose this structure and continue excavating it. And we also did get GPR done. That happened, oddly enough, the week that we had the wonderful weather here. And it was a hot, muddy mess, but we managed to get large chunks of it done. And I just got the results about 30 minutes ago. So this isn't in here, but I am happy to show the committee. So this is at the this is the first cut at 30 to 50 centimeters. And what I'll do is zoom in here.
Do you by chance have that on email?
I do.
Can you send it to me so I can put it up on the screen?
Wait.
We may not want to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
We normally do not show
Yeah,
details of archaeological anything
We
in a
may.
manner that broadcasts it to the universe.
Yes, sir.
So, what you can see here, this dark line here, that is the officer's quarters. It's showing up at 30 to 50 centimeters below the surface. This is where we were excavating, so we weren't, and a lot of the heavy equipment was, so the GPR didn't have a chance to scan here. But we do have a very clear outline of the officer's quarters.
More or less matches what you'd expect on the Sanborn.
It matches exactly where the Sanborn map showed it.
Configuration,
Almost
the whole
within a foot.
Beautiful.
So it beautifully lines up. And then down here, it's a little harder to make out, but we do have remnants of the south structure. It looks like it's been heavily damaged, especially on this end, on the west end, but we do have some very bright signatures right in the middle of it. So this might actually be the fireplace. So, but it's very clear that we do have something here. These targets are probably the 1930s rectangle, the corner of the 1930s building that was built across the middle of the lot. So we're not done.
From perusing floor plans of officers' quarters, are you just anticipating that the fireplace would be más o menos centrally located?
Not assuming anything.
But that signature is sort
Uh,
of.
Supposedly
yelling
that's,
fireplace, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, that was yelling fireplace.
Hmm.
So here's the next cut at 90 to 100 centimeters or 110 centimeters. And here's where we get our first interesting hit. There's an oval structure, some kind of oval anomaly sitting at a meter deep below the officers' quarters.
Below the elevation of the bottom of the footings.
Well, no, this would be 90, this would be a meter below the current surface.
Okay, so
So a roughly 80 centimeters-ish below the officers' quarters. We have a very unusual but very strong oval signature. And then if you look farther to the south, we have two parallel lines here, and it looks like a couple partitions sitting below the south structure. So we'll see if these hold when we get down there. I don't know what these are, but that almost looks like it could be a building. Again, this is at the 80 to, or 90 to 110 centimeters. And then the third slice at 190 to 210. Oh, come on, zoom in. So again, on the north side, we still see something occurring in the same spot as that oval. So it's extending fairly deep. And I think I'll let that speak for itself. But we have walls very clearly showing up,
Well, obviously,
or what looks like it could be walls.
the officers'
We'll have to
quarters didn't
confirm.
go into a barren landscape, there would probably
Yeah.
be something there, so interesting, is it the historic occupation or is it prehistoric underneath?
Yeah, exactly. But you know, we'll have to wait and see. But the other thing that's interesting is, again, you know, as I said, on the eastern side, it looked like it was largely glade sediments. That's down at 2 meters. There's nothing there. There are no hits. And it's the same for the two other cuts above. There are no hits. So there is some kind of anomaly on the eastern half of the unit, I suspect. And this is the idea that we're playing off of, that there is some kind of large drainage, some kind of channel here. Whether it's a cienega, a pond, or an actual drainage, we don't know.
So that's where the building was to begin.
This
with,
is where the
right?
building was to begin with, yes.
All that other stuff is under the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's the one strange sort of smear.
This right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, that's 2 meters down.
Mm-hmm. So something, yeah, it's very interesting that the western half is what's showing all the hits, and the eastern half is largely blank. I guess that's kind of the takeaway here.
Given your observation of the massive dark deposit, that's.
It's very nice to see that somewhat confirmed by the GPR.
Yeah. At least it doesn't conflict.
It doesn't conflict. It's supporting evidence. So, but that's our progress report for right now. That's what we found thus far. That's good today.
How many times have people expressed the alarm that might come from seeing something that could be human, and everyone needs their tizzy? Not, that hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet. No, we have had bone, but it's all been historic soft cut
It's not good.
bone. None of the, even in the bores, we did find bone coming out of some of the bores. But it was, it was largely socket cow. So, well, we found a few pieces of historic, matte paint tablewares, nothing out of the ordinary you would expect. But yeah, nothing even remotely looking, humanish. So. In fact, we haven't found anything really that looks ancestral Puebloan. So. Like Spanish colonial.
Maybe.
Do we have a map of where these units are located? I mean, is there?
Not right now, that's more of a general.
They're more schematically in vertical space and defined within the entire lot, as opposed to a unit here, versus a unit there.
Okay,
It's
okay, so we're talking.
Stratigraphic.
Yeah, stratigraphic unit.
Not-
So the depth is known, but the 2D extent it's not.
Okay,
Yeah.
and probably somewhere you told us how big the boreholes are gonna be?
The boreholes, they're already done, they just finished today, they're 30 centimeters diameter. And each one is spaced 8 feet apart.
And so it's a core, right? And you pull out,
It's a drill.
yeah,
And so so every, what they were doing is every 10 feet, they drill 10 feet, they pull it out, put the dirt off to the side so that we could look at it, and then next 10 feet. So,
but it is coming out.
yeah, it's coming out pretty
Loose.
firm.
Sure, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sure,
It'd be lovely to see an actual core.
Yeah.
Heather has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to maybe just a second. Maybe what we could do is just get a brief overview of the next steps. And one question that I did have is have they started to dig the basement yet, or the major piers that go down to support the entire building? All right, have you gotten to clear, or I guess they call it sterile soil yet?
In the boreholes, we absolutely got to sterile. We reached sterile at about 10 to 12 feet where we started hitting the Santa Fe gravels, the Santa Fe alluvium. So.
Robin, our agenda says that this is a bi-monthly update, so can we expect to see you again in January?
Yes.
Excellent, looking forward to it.
Yes. Yes, and I'll be sending out this, I just finished this today, so I'll be sending this out formally to Paul for the city and to Suke and NEH and the SHPO.
The same report?
The same report, yeah, as part of the MOA. Yes.
Okay, and if you could just provide it to staff before the packets go out, so we can include it in the packet for the board. And
Yes.
that's you'll see that on the calendar when the deadline is for that.
I will
Thank you.
do my best. This one came up fairly suddenly because I was trying to rush to get the all this last bit of information in. So yes,
Okay, it'll be helpful for them to look at before.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah, great work. That's fascinating.
fun
It's
stuff.
exciting.
Fun stuff.
Exciting.
Thank you.
That is too cool. Very cool.
We're doing science, guys.
We like to think so. Yeah.
I wonder how it's gonna change our perception of how deep you need to go, right? We've had other cases where clearly things went a lot deeper than we expected. This could be just reinforce that.
Yeah, we've been playing, Jim and I have been playing Gallison, who's our geomorphologist on this. We've been playing with this idea that there might be a large channel going right through, just south of Fort Marcy Street, cutting across this area, because there's not a lot of Puebloan stuff, really hardly any, south of here. And it kind of just travels down, from the Sweeney Center, Convention Center down Johnson Street and that area. And there's a curious void kind of south of there. And this might explain why that void is occurring.
And so on Johnson, we came across burials right at 4 feet to 9 feet. And it's like, you gotta go to 10 to 12 feet before you even get to our natural soils, the Santa Fe soils. So you're thinking of all that cultural fill, 9-10 feet of cultural fill. It's
Pretty intense.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
it's deep.
And seeing that here, that's like.
It makes you real uncomfortable with those 30 centimeter, test units.
Right.
Yeah, no. Gotta go much, much deeper.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember, there's a parking lot, I mean, that's gonna go down quite a ways, because there's a parking lot under the museum, right?
It's gonna be a basement.
Basement.
So the basement is going down 20 feet.
Uh-huh.
The idea of the subsurface parking went away.
I see.
It was initially planned,
Uh-huh.
but it's not in the plan now.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So eventually we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Trying to remember, wasn't there a swamp somewhere out by Marcy Street or something?
I believe in the OES report, they documented what appeared to be an acequia or some kind of drainage in the south and the eastern half of this parcel. And so there's an idea that it went up all the way up by the Santa Fe River, but on the northern half. And there was a diversion because it was all swamp land all the way until you really get into Guadalupe, kind of that whole area.
Yeah, I'm sure you already have it. You looked at Terra Plaza's dissertation.
Which one?
Who is it? I'm trying to remember the name of her dissertation. But it had to do with the Cienegas in basically the northern half of Santa Fe. With a geomorphological
I
study.
have to look at that one. No, I
Terra
haven't.
Plaza, yeah.
Terra Plaza.
And it was early 2010s, I think. I can't remember.
Say that last name again?
Plewa. I'll spell it rather than pronounce it, because I'm not sure. But yeah, she did some pretty extensive research on, sort of the hydrographic setting of ancient Santa Fe.
Wow.
I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, definitely worth. She plotted out where she thought some of these Cienegas were, so maybe some overlap there. Definitely worth looking at.
Yeah.
It would be very nice to see. I might show that to Jim after he's done with this study to see how well he compared.
Wow.
Yeah,
Because the ponding in the clay, that's a giveaway for that.
I think we have it too at Arms.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't know if it's accessible, but we definitely have a copy, so if you send me an email, I can track it down.
thank you.
If you can't get it elsewhere.
It's not the same, but in some ways it's analogous. This dark, massive deposit
Right.
appeared in southeast corner of La Sequoia construction footprint. It appeared to have been placed to fill a low spot, an arroyo or something. But the difference is in that area, it's got quite a lot of mixed Native American ancestral Puebloan stuff in
There's
there.
the
But the predominance
citation.
is historic wares, saw cut, butchered bone. And member ones would be the best person to tell you about what the whole stretch of Paseo de Peralta, north of the post office and the federal building, looked like, because much of it was this black, deep, massive deposit that had a whole bunch of historic trash in it. So you might want to track down member ones and pick her brain.
She actually did mention something about this large historic kind of infilling episode. Yeah, she mentioned it, and I remember way back when Courtney and I were excavating at the federal courthouse, we actually saw something similar about him. But it was only like maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet thick. But we encountered something very similar to it. So,
Well, if that was at the courthouse, Paseo is some
Yeah.
distance north, and she monitored most
Mhm.
of that work that was out there. And from her descriptions, I'm thinking it was
something similar. Yeah.
much more massive than a couple of feet.
Yeah. She, like I said, she did mention this to me a few weeks ago. And so I was gonna start looking into this. We gotta look more down.
Over at the cemetery, that had been placed before it was a cemetery. Because some of the graves go through this stuff down into clean sand. And then the backfill is a mixture of said sand and this stuff.
Are you saying there's a research paper in this?
It's 20 or 30.
The historic infilling of Santa Fe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start with that dissertation and
Yeah.
follow the archaeological leads.
Thank you for the reference. I'll
It's
definitely.
on YouTube. The river runs through it.
Yeah, that's the one.
Environmental history of the Santa Fe River.
Excellent.
That's all I got.
Thank you.
Okay.
Exciting.
Yeah. We're glad
I
to
was
hear.
wondering what was happening, driving by there.
If the committee would like a visit, let me know. We do need to schedule tours, if anybody does want to come and take a look.
Okay, and the city has to work magic to make it possible for us to do that.
Well, and for 3 of us to go at once, yeah.
Yeah.
2 of us can go anytime we want, but.
Quorum, right?
Right.
Right, we have to avoid a quorum.
So if it was all at once, the city'd have to work some magic. If it's drips and drabs, well then, c'est la vie.
Yes.
But in somewhere in that abomination known as the city code, it's also indicated that we are not supposed to visit locations. But since we're not in charge of this location, we can visit it anytime we feel like it, he said. Because it's not a case coming before us.
Right?
Indeed.
Sure, I'd love to go.
Yeah. You know, no, I don't want that to count to one of your days. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, we are keeping it as a controlled construction site, per the construction company Bradbury. So, we do have to do full PPE while we're out there excavating. So, that's why we do ask, we schedule it in advance. So we can
Cool.
So steel toes and hard hat and all that.
the whole shebang.
Got it.
Yep. So.
Ready?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for reminding me, Paul.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Fascinating what you guys are doing.
We now have matters, if there are no other administrative matters,
No, sir. Thank you.
then we have matters from the committee. So
I have a question. Where are we on our, ordinance? Are we sorry? We do it?
Heather, would you be able to speak in regards
I got
to,
it.
where we are with the, code update?
Yes, so we had to finalize the update based on all the comments that have been given. And then now it's in review by the city attorney's office. The final for city attorney draft was sent to them on Friday. So what I can do is I'll send you an email with the latest draft of the ordinance. But if you want Member Bechtel for the historic districts ordinance as well as for the archaeological ordinances.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Will do.
all of us,
If you wish, I certainly be happy to send it to you.
yeah. It's always nice to know what it looks like at a particular point in time.
Hmm.
Because things change.
Right, right. And the city attorney, this is the draft that's going to be going for public hearing. And so there might be some minor changes based on cross references or whatever they come up with anyway. I'm not an attorney, thank goodness. So, but this will be sort of an interim before the public hearing, what goes to all the boards and commissions for their review and approval. So I'll send it to you for sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
Anything else? Anybody got any scheduling difficulties coming up?
I was just gonna ask about that, because I never remember to look at the calendar on here. Our next meeting is at December 19th.
Let me verify that for you just a
Seems like
moment.
it has to be, because the following Thursday is the day after Christmas, I think.
Let me
We're
just
looking at Thursday, the 19th. That is correct. We had to move up this one and yes, that is correct.
I asked because I just accepted something else, but it doesn't like the holiday. Potluck thing.
And if there's any changes, Vice Chair Pierce will let you know immediately.
All right. As far as I know, there are no other complicating factors, so see you all next month.
We haven't actually adjourned, right?
No.
So with the motion to adjourn this meeting.
Moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Bye.
We
You are
are
adjourned.
adjourned.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Please
Thank
stay.
you.
Thank you.
The feed is